Two of the biggest figures in the potential 2028 race are going at each other in public. And I think it's about more than them just not liking one another, although I think they probably don't like one another. I think it says something about where the Democratic Party has been, where it is, and where it's going. And I want to break that all down in the video today. So let's first establish the context. So Kamala Harris wrote a memoir called 107 Days about her time as the 2024 Democratic presidential nominee. In that memoir, she wrote pretty candidly about a lot of things, but one of the things that she wrote about was how she thought about her potential vice presidential picks, including the people she didn't pick. Obviously, she picked Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota. One of the people she didn't pick was Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. And the way that she presents Shapiro in the memoir is not in a flattering light. So she wrote that Shapiro, when they met, demanded that if he was picked, he be present in every single meeting that Harris was also present in. And she wrote this, quote, "I told him bluntly that was an unrealistic expectation. A vice president is not a co-president. I had a nagging concern that he would be unable to settle for a role as number two and that it would wear on our partnership." She was not done. She also wrote that an aide of hers said that Shapiro had asked the aide how many bedrooms were in the vice presidential residence and wondered aloud about whether the Smithsonian might work with him to loan Pennsylvania art for the house. Now, Shapiro had largely ignored that provocation, but in an interview for a profile he did in The Atlantic with Tim Alberta, Shapiro got pissed. That's a technical term. So Alberta read Shapiro the quotes, "I just read you." And I want to read how Shapiro responded. This is Alberta writing. "She wrote that in her book," Shapiro said in response to the claim concerning the residence's art. "That's complete and utter bullshit. I can tell you that her accounts are just blatant lies." He then added, Alberta says, Alberta asked Shapiro whether he felt betrayed by Harris because they've known each other for 20 years. Here's what Shapiro said, quote, "I mean, she's trying to sell books and cover her ass." So, yeah, that's pretty potent stuff, right? Now, again, like I said, I don't think this is just about the two of them and how they may not like each other. I actually think it's about something bigger. I'm going to explain what that is right after I tell you this, which is I don't take a lot of sponsorships. I get a lot of sponsorships offered to me for this YouTube channel, and I don't take most of them. I took Ground News because I used Ground News before they offered to sponsor my YouTube channel. Ground.news. It is a site that helps you navigate the partisan and left, center, and right media outlets that are everywhere now so that you can know where the coverage you are reading falls on the political spectrum. It is invaluable. I have it bookmarked on my bookmark bar. I go to it every single day. And now, and this is great, for people who watch my channel, you can get 40% off the Ground News premium subscription by just going to ground.news/Chris C. Ground.news/Chris and then the letter C, my last initial. I'll tell you one thing that I find the most valuable about Ground News, beyond their obvious offering of telling you where all this news is coming from and aggregating the news. It's a thing they call the blind spot. And what they do every single day is find a story that the left is talking a ton about, that the right and the center might not be talking as much about, and a story the right is talking about that the left and center are not talking about. I use it all the time to make sure I'm checking my own blind spots. I'm not missing a huge story out there that either the right or the left or maybe the center is talking about. It's worth it just for the blind spot alone, in my opinion, a Ground News subscription, but you get all of their content and you get 40% off their premium rate. Use ground.news/Chris C. Ground.news/Chris C. Terrific site. Can't recommend it any higher. Okay, so we've established, I think, that Josh Shapiro and Kamala Harris are probably not going to be the best of friends. She thought he was too craven and political and calculating and that he didn't want to take a secondary role to her. He said she is lying and making things up and covering her ass. Okay, so what is this about? So I tend to think that what you're seeing out of Shapiro is a reflection of a broader anger bubbling within the Democratic Party toward Joe Biden, certainly, but also Kamala Harris by extension. And let me explain. I mean, broadly, that anger is aimed at how the hell did we lose to Donald Trump and let a second Trump term happen. But more specifically, I think it is about the fact that for months and months and months leading up to that June 27th, 2024 debate, people like Shapiro and every other prominent Democratic elected official in the country basically went to the White House and was like, how is Joe Biden doing? Is he doing okay? And they were told over and over again that even though Biden was 82 years old and clearly had slowed, certainly physically and somewhat observably mentally, that he was fine and he was great and he was outworking them and he was going to run for a second term. And then those elected officials, Shapiro included, turned around and put their credibility on the line and said, he's doing fine. He's doing great. He's going to be great. He's way better than the alternative. Well, then they tuned in on June 27th. And it was very clear in that debate within 5 minutes that Joe Biden was not, in fact, doing great. Maybe it was a bad day, but it was a really bad day. And suddenly, the elected officials, not named Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, realized they had been deceived, lied to, told things were sunny and bright when things were, in fact, not sunny and bright. And I think that there was a lot of anger there. I think politicians really value their credibility. They don't like it when they put it out there and it gets shown to be unreliable, as the Joe Biden is doing just fine stuff did. So I think there's a lot of anger there. I think that anger dissipated somewhat when Harris emerged as the nominee very quickly, and it was like people were excited about her and polling was showing her ahead of Trump in all these swing states. And then I think that wore off, right? The Kamala Harris boom lasted about 2 weeks and then it went bust. And so I think what you're having now when you see this sniping, and it peeks its way out occasionally, most obviously in the book by Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson, Original Sin, about Biden and the cover-up of his health condition and his mental and physical well-being. But you've seen in background quotes, quotes without people's names on them here and there. But I think what you're seeing now is that come 2028, really probably 2027, even some 2026, you're going to see more of the elected officials who are not part of the Biden-Harris administration, and that includes Pete Buttigieg, who want to run for president, are going to come out and sort of try to say, we were basically lied and deceived, and these people can't be trusted again. I will note, this is not the first time Shapiro has publicly said something. So in an interview with Stephen A. Smith on SiriusXM Radio in September, Shapiro was asked about Harris and Biden and what they knew and when they knew it. Here's what Shapiro told Stephen A. about Kamala. Quote, she's going to have to answer to how she was in the room and yet never said anything publicly. He then added, I was very vocal with Biden privately and extremely vocal with his staff about my concerns about his fitness to be able to run for another term. I was direct with them. I told them my concerns. And again, I think in that you see the anger. You see the, I knew that this was bad. They told me it was fine. I went out and said it was fine. And I got bit by that. So I do think that anger, which I think is real, is going to be a feature, not a bug, of the coming 2028 presidential race. Because Kamala Harris appears to be running. Pete Buttigieg is going to run. And both of them, I think, at some level are going to be made to answer for what did you know, when did you know it, and why did you not speak out? So, yes, I do think the Shapiro saying that Kamala Harris, the vice president, Democratic vice president and last Democratic presidential nominee, is telling quote unquote blatant lies and covering her ass is very noteworthy. But it's not just because they appear to not like one another. This isn't just about an interpersonal dynamic. I think it is about much more. I think it is about this seething resentment and anger that exists within the Democratic Party, toward what happened, toward the fact that they feel as though they were deceived and lied to, and that deception led directly to Donald Trump serving a second term and everything that's come after that. So that's why I think it's worth noting. I hope you agree. That's it for me today. As I always say, I hope you subscribe to my channel. I am independent and I am authentic. I promise you those things. I also hope you like and comment on this video in particular. It helps me build my following among people who aren't already subscribers. Last thing, Be an evangelist for me. If you're already a subscriber, go tell 2 or 3 people about why you like what I'm doing here and why they should sign up and subscribe before we get to 2026 and the real fun begins. Okay, everybody, take care.